Say Shana Africa, say it louder. Say Shana. Salam alaikum, assalam alaikum, salam alaikum, assalam alaikum, salam alaikum, assalam alaikum, salam alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
United we stand, divided we fall. All we need is freedom. All we need is love. Free Africans free. Free Africans free.
Be free, be free, free from slavery. Free, be free, be free, free from slavery. Free, free yourself from mental slavery. Free, free yourself from mental slavery. Free, free yourself from mental slavery. Free, be free, be free, free from slavery. Be free, be free, free from slavery. Yeah.
We're here to speak the word. We're here to stop the war. We're here to speak the word. We're here to stop the war. We're here to speak the word. We're here to stop the war.
Salam alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Salam alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Salam alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Salam alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Hello and welcome to the show, dear viewers of Concerned Citizen of South Sudan. As you can read the title on the screen, the results of Pope visit to the country. Tonight, a closer look at the ecumenical pilgrimage of peace. We are taking a closer look at the 3 days of the Pope visit to our country, land of great abundance, from Friday, February 3rd, 2023, throughout Saturday, February 4th, 2023, and which has ended today, Sunday, February 5th. And I believe Pope has already departed our country, the Republic of South Sudan. The visit of Pope Francis, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and to our country was called the Ecumenical Pilgrimage of Peace. This means that encouraging effort for peacemaking in the two countries, which are undergoing internal conflict, was the main objective of the visit of Pope Francis to two countries, particularly our country, South Sudan, which has not been stable since 2013 to the date. In this episode, we shall take a closer look at the results of the historic visit of the Pontiff, the Bishop of Roman, a head of Roman Catholic Church worldwide, and the Sovereign of the State of Vatican, alongside other well-known religious leaders in the world, Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Wilby, a leader of Global Anglican Communion, and moderator of General Assembly of the Church of Scotland, Reverend Dr. Ian Greenshill. The citizens in the city of Juba turned out in a large numbers to welcome the Pope and attend all the masses he headed preside over the St. Tresa in Qatar, and at the Dr. John Garang Museum. A huge reception to Pope Francis at the Juba International Airport alongside in Juba was a sign of gesture of a good will and hospitality by the citizen of our country in Juba. On the social media as well, social media platform, all over the country, to this important visit of the Bishop of Roman and the head of Roman Catholic Church. In this episode of our show today, dear viewers of Concerned Citizens of South Sudan, we will focus on the message of peace and three religious leaders who came to our country to push forward this discussion. We shall answer also questions such as what are the short-term results of the Pope visit to our country in 3 days that is spent in Juba, as well as long-term results. Has the visit yielded the tangible results in the last 3 days? How do we evaluate the impact of this historic visit of the pontiff of the people to the people, political leaders in the country? Will the Vatican have the follow-up on the process of peace and reconciliation, which the pontiff has initiated through this visit? And many more questions. I guess speaker today, that's Dengbi Ayok, the chairman of United Citizens for Change, will join us by Clubhouse. And also, my other guests will join here on the studio of Concerned Citizens of South Sudan, Dr. Peter Biara-Jack, a fellowship at Harvard University, and a peace activist who is well known to South Sudanese people. Gentlemen, welcome to Concerned Citizens of South Sudan. And I believe that Dr. Peter Biar is here. I would like to give you a few minutes to greet our audience before we start the discussion. Dr. Peter Biar, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Comrade Jonker, for the invitation once more to join the concerned citizen of South Sudan and to have a discussion with our people on the visit of the Bishop of Rome, Pope Francis, along with the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, and the moderator of the Church of Scotland in Green Shields. This visit, as you know, was an exciting moment, and I want to congratulate the people of South Sudan for welcoming the Pope. As much as the visit was meaningful for us, I believe it was also meaningful for the Holy Father. His visit to South Sudan, I'm sure he has seen amazement as he described it. He saw hope despite the challenges that we face in South Sudan. He also saw faith, people who believe in God, and he also saw resilience. And I think those qualities speak to our people. So I want to thank everyone who worked very hard for the last 3 days to make this visit possible and to make it peaceful. I know everyone put in their work, from those who were providing security in the field, soldiers, whether they're from the army, police, national security, all the way to the religious leaders, the bishops, cardinals, all these people, they have been preparing very hard for the last several weeks. And I'm grateful that the visit was amazing. The city looked clean. People were happy. People walk from Yambio all the way to Juba. People walk from Ruma all the way to Juba. And I think this will leave memories and stories that our people will share with their children and on to their children. So I'm so grateful that this visit was able to happen. And I'm grateful to people of South Sudan across the board for their tireless work to make sure that this visit was a great success.
Well, thank you, Dr. Peter Biara-Jack. And actually, let me start with you, Dr. Peter Biara-Jack. And how do you look at the visit of Pope Francis and his delegation to our country? as initiative of peace.
Yeah, I think, by the way, it will still remain what the long-term outcome of the visit will be.
Yes.
What I can say for now, just looking at the images that I was able to see from uh, across South Sudan, the way where people have been reacting to this visit, people are touched. I know there has been a lot of talk on the leaders.
Mm,
You remember when the leaders traveled to the Vatican in 2019, the Pope kissed their feet.
mm,
They made promises that when they come back to South Sudan, they were going to work together to
mm,
bring peace. And since then, nothing has really changed in terms of the suffering that the people of South Sudan
mm,
continue to face. So there has been that concern. Even if the Pope come today, would the leaders change their heart? And I feel that sometimes this is missing the point. The Pope visit is not to the leaders. If he just wanted to talk with the leaders,
mm,
he would have asked them again to come to the Vatican. That was not the purpose of the visit. The purpose was to the people, to touch the hearts of the
mm,
Christians in South Sudan, and to remind them of the teachings of Jesus Christ, and to share with them, uh, examples of humility, and to join them on a journey, a fellowship, a prayer for peace. And I think if you look at it from that angle,
mm,
then this visit will help. Not that it will magically
mm,
remove all the crises that we face, and everybody will have peace in their heart. It will not happen at once, but I think slowly, the Holy Father, having come to our country at his advanced age, is very old. He is confined to a wheelchair. It's very difficult for him to travel. But he had to come because he believes by coming and joining us, he will be able to share with us and to touch us and to shed light on the situation in South Sudan. And I believe he has succeeded in that because he has touched the hearts of South Sudanese. Uh, I have never seen a crowd like that gathered at John Grang Mausoleum,
mhm,
the
mhm,
crowd that we have been seeing over the last several days, not since the Declaration of Independence, but we are seeing that for the first time. And these people who are gathered there, they're not just from one ethnic group. They're from across South Sudan.
mm,
People were united as Christian for the first time. And I think that is where the message is. The second element of this visit, and why I'm also very optimistic,
mm,
is what it will do to the church. You know very well the role that our churches play in our struggle for independence,
mm,
particularly the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church. They were extremely instrumental. Two religious figures in particular, Freddy Taban,
mm,
Bishop of the Diocese of Torit,
mm,
and Daniel Garanganyet from Bishop of Bor.
mm,
These were the key religious leaders for those of us who were in the bush. And they mobilized Christian. They gave us faith. They gave us hope. They gave us purpose. And they made us believe that our struggle was going to succeed. And their role was instrumental, just as instrumental as the role of the SPLM.
mm,
But since independence, we haven't really seen that level of focus from the church. And I think by this visit, these three religious leaders that unite the Western church under them come
mm,
to South Sudan together. And I think these churches, probably amounting to 80 or 90% of the population of South Sudan,
mm.
this is significant. I feel everyone has been touched in one way or another. The churches have been empowered. And I hope, because the Pope told them directly that you bishops, you should speak out against injustices,
Yes.
not be afraid, and you should defend Africa with your life.
Yes.
So I think that message is going to trickle down. It will not only be the bishop from Yei, or the bishop of Yei, the one that has been criticizing the Catholic bishop.
Santos Lago.
Yeah, it's not going to be Santo alone now,
Mm,
who will be championing the cause of justice
mm,
for Christians. All the other bishops have now been mandated
yes.
by the Pope to speak up on the injustices and to empower the people, not just to be begging the leaders and running after the leaders, begging them for resources, allowing them to have terrible influence in the church, as we've seen some of the confusion in the church that we have seen. So now that they are going to go back to the basic and focus on what is essential, I believe that the churches will realize that they have power, and that power is through the people and is through speaking truth and the word of God as it is, rather than trying to please the leaders.
Well, Dr. Peter Biarajak, indeed, we have a reason to be optimistic, because this visit will change a lot, and hopefully we will see a lot are changing. With that, let me give Ustaz Dengdi Ayok an opportunity here to weigh in, as well as you just tune in on the Clubhouse. Ustaz Dengdi Ayok, we need your perspective too, and give on the visit of Pope Francis. How do you look at it as a push toward the peace process and ending the violence in the country? Ustaz Dengdi?
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن شاء الله بتسمعني كويس أستاذ جونكور؟
واضح جدا.
الله يخليك. تحية للمشاهدين اللي بيسمعوا لنا، وتحية كذلك للمستمعين على الكلاب هاوس. زيارة رئيس الكنيسة الكاثوليكية الرومانية ومطران روما ورئيس دولة الفاتيكان البابا فرانسيس زيارة بتستحق التقدير والثناء لما فيها من حسن النوايا ومقاصد إنسانية نحو المواطن والوطن. لو نظرت إلى التسمية الدينية للرحلة، فاسمها الرحلة المسكونية للصلاة من أجل السلام، اللي قام به البابا إلى كل من جمهورية الكونغو الديمقراطية وجمهوريتنا العزيزة. والزيارة عبارة عن زيارة بيقوم بها البابا إلى بلدان 2 من بلدان إفريقية بتعاني من آثار هذا العنف والحرب الأهلية. وقياداتها السياسية، القيادات السياسية يعني في كل من صوت السودان وكونغو، قيادات سياسية في مأزق بتاع تحقيق السلام والأمن والاستقرار على حساب مصالحهم السياسية في ظل المعاناة الواقعة على الشعب في كل من البلدين. ده من ناحية. من ناحية تانية ملاحظ إنه الرحلة دي طغت عليها أو غطاها الصبغة الدينية، لأن الزائر هو رجل دين.
نعم.
وبالتالي الناس عينوا للزيارة دي كزيارة دينية. وصورة الرجل دين للبابا طبعا هو الصورة المترسخة في أذهان كثير من الناس حول العالم وكذلك. لكن لو نظرنا للزيارة ده من قريب وبنظرة فاحصة وتحليلية من خلال اللقاءات اللي قام به البابا، التقى بالقادة السياسيين كويس. وإذا نظرنا برضو للخطابات اللي هو قدمه خلال هذه الزيارات، بنلقى إنه الزيارة بتاعت البابا زيارة سياسية تسربلت بثوب بتاع الدين واتخذت أبعاد إنسانية اللي هو الاهتمام بالإنسان. فهذه زيارة هدفها إنه يجي يناقش قضايا بتاعت إعادة السلام والأمن والاستقرار في ساوث السودان. والبابا استخدم من خلال الزيارة ده الوزن بتاعته الأخلاقي والثقل الروحي ومكانته ونفوذه والتأثير الديني كزعيم روحي لكنيسة عالمية، علشان ما يضغط على القادة السياسيين في البلاد عشان هم يحققوا سلام. وده الشيء بيستحق الإشادة وبيستحق الشكر، لأنه السلام والأمن والاستقرار في جمهورية السودان الجنوبي مطلب شعبي أساسي ومطلب استراتيجي في بناء دولة عظيمة في هذه البقعة المباركة من القارة الإفريقية. ولذلك فإن هذه زيارة لجمهورية السودان الجنوبي زيارة أعادت أضواء، يعني أعادت أضواء من جديد جمهورية السودان الجنوبي، والأضواء رجعت لنا زي الأضواء بتاعت 2011 عندما امتلأ ساحة الدكتور جون جارنج مبيور من جديد بآلاف من الناس. يوم 9 يوليو 2011 امتلأت من جديد لزيارة بتاع البابا الصباح ده. وأول أمس برضو والأول يوم اللي هو جابيو، فالزيارة رجعت يعني بلادنا لأضواء من جديد بعد ما غابت حاجة بتاعت يعني 11 سنة من الأضواء. والزيارة دي برضو قدر يجمع القادة السياسيين يعني في مكان واحد كويس كلهم، والمواطنين برضو على أساس بعدين يكون في سلام والمصالحة في البلد. والزيارة عكست الاهتمام بالإنسان وبقضاياه، ودي صورة بتاع الزيارة. يعني هي زيارة ناسعة ومشركة، والزيارة النبيلة في مقاصدها، لأنه الجوهر بتاعته هو السلام والمصالحة واستقرار الإنسان في جمهورية السودان الجنوبي. أنا أكتفي بهذا القدر وسأعود لاحقا لأتحدث أكثر عشان ما نفسح المجال برضو لضيفك الآخر للحديث. شكرا.
أشكرك كل الشكر أستاذ دينجد أيوك. بالطبع زيارة مقاصد أميرة كما قاله سيد مايكل ماكويلويت، إنه هذا الزيارة سيكون لها مقاصد حميدة. شكرا أشكرك. ننتقل إلى أستاذ Dr. Peter Berajak. Peter Berajak, let us have a closer look at the visit from the speeches of Pope Francis and Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Wilby, in Juba, and evaluate it. Please, I want you to take us through in next 20 minutes. Has the visit yielded any tangible results in the last 3 days? How do we evaluate the impact of this historic visit of the pontiff, the people and political leaders in the country? So, Peter Biar?
Well, first of all, one thing about the Pope is that he speaks his mind.
Yes.
And I'm sure people in Juba were shocked that the Holy Father was willing to be so blunt and so direct to express what he sees as problems holding the South Sudanese back from a life of peace. From the very first speech, he was saying things that are wrong in South Sudan: corruption, violence, the leaders seeking their own interests and not the interests of people. Why leadership is about service, being a servant to the people of South Sudan. And I think that level of direct criticism while the president is standing there is something that has been missing, because you know very well the country has been hijacked by flatterers, people who would like to say what the leaders want to hear, not exactly how the things are. So sometimes these leaders, they are used to this. This is what they expect. And then the other political leaders, like say when the president of Kenya came, they are very diplomatic, and they will not want to say something that may offend their hosts. So you will see some messages there, and you will have to dig in closely to really find what is being meant. Well, that was not the case with the Pope. Pope spoke his mind directly in the presence of the president. And even at some point, you can see the body language that maybe people were not prepared for that. So that is a number one tangible thing. And by doing that, the Pope has given everybody the liberty to do the same.
Yes.
Whether you are a bishop, whether you are a citizen, whether you are a nun, whatever religious leader that you are, or just any other leader, whether you are a chief, now Pope has given people liberty, that it is okay to criticize these political leaders in their presence.
Yes.
They are doing something that is not serving the interests of the people of South Sudan. So that is number one. Number two, by coming, especially at this particular time, and the significance of this time is very important. There are a lot of crises happening in the world. And the world attention for the last 1 year has focused almost exclusively on the crisis in Ukraine. If you turn on CNN, Al Jazeera, BBC, it's all about Ukraine all day long. This is what people are talking about. And you can even argue that South Sudan crisis to a certain extent, has been forgotten by some of the global powers.
Indeed.
I can tell you here from my experience, even here in the United States, without the significant efforts that we have been putting, no one would be talking about anything to do with South Sudan here, right? But because of our presence and the relationship that we have with elements within the U.S. government, whether it is in the Congress, in the State Department, or all these other, we are able to bring the case of South Sudan. And it's really hard because you have to keep on pushing. You have to, reach to all your contacts and make sure that our situation is not lost in the global agenda. Well, by coming with over 120 journalists, for those 3 days, the Pope made South Sudan to be the focus of the global attention. And that gave us the platform. It gave the world to deeply understand the suffering of our people. Why is our country so broken? Why are our people so unhappy? Why are our people so scattered? And that is something that is amazing because all kinds of stories were aired out from the economic crises that the people are facing. Hunger, a humanitarian, lack of humanitarian assistance. This was prominently featured consistently. And the Pope made a direct appeal. And then the journalists went there and they talk about to the people, they talked to IDPs, they understood the horrific conditions in which they live. You can also see these other issues that no one talk about, issues of climate change.
Yes.
And this is a big issue that is affecting South Sudan. Because if you see now the crisis that is affecting Jonglei and Upper Nile, and even to a certain extent, Central Equatoria, where you are seeing these conflict between the herders and the farmers, part of it are driven by climate change. Because just since 2019, Jungkook, Sud, the wetland that we call Sud, the size of the Sud has tripled and multiplied 3 times than it used to be, just since 2013. And by the way, before that, Sud used to be about the size of New Hampshire, the state of New Hampshire, or you can say this, the size of the country called Netherlands. Now is like 3 times that, right? So it has encroached into the land. It has made a lot of cattle camps that people used to keep their cattle in have now been submerged underwater, right? So it's a real crisis. And the problem is we are not talking about these things. We are not coming up with solutions to fix, because this is a technical problem that require capacity to fix. Now, it requires resources because you got to invest a lot of money. But to get those resources, it requires also legitimacy, right? So there's a lot of factors there. So by coming, he raised those issues of climate change, the issues of pollution, the logging, illegal logging that is happening, that is exacerbating the effects of the climate change. That are the issues. Pope has helped us to bring these issues to light. But also, this visit has also allowed the world to see the good side of the South Sudanese people from just very small moments.
Yes.
The kid that gave 50 pounds to the Pope.
That's the little boy.
That little boy.
Yeah.
That is a very important gesture.
Yes.
It's a gesture both of generosity as well as, humility, and giving, having a giving heart. So if we can show that to ourselves and to one another, if we can see that, there is still hope. And I always believe that there is always hope for South Sudan because we have never really tried to work for South Sudan. Since independence, all of us, we've been pursuing different agenda. We never really pursue a national agenda that can unite us. So Pope visit has brought attention into our countries, or to our country. Now, it's not going to be an immediate effect or immediate impact. But as I said before, over time, is going to be significant. First of all, the political leaders now, they have realized how vulnerable they are, that they're actually at the mercy of the people.
Yes.
They're there because of themselves. And even the soldiers have opened their eyes. If you see the first day when the Pope arrived, there was all that intensity of South Sudanese with the military moving and cars and all of that. By the second day, people have calmed down because they realize that Pope is not about hype. He's moving on a very small car. It's like how Jesus entered Jerusalem. This is what I was thinking about. when Jesus went to on
riding a donkey.
Palm Sunday.
Yes.
Palm Sunday, yeah, he went on the back of a donkey, right? And people are expecting him to come with a big horse, and with a sword because he's the King of Kings.
Yes.
No, he came on a donkey. And Pope, he came with a very small car. In Juba, they call it Dinka Fellas. It's like when
that is called Fiat.
Yeah, Fiat. When you have no money, this is what you buy. People use B8. So I feel like this visit has really empowered the people. The question now is whether that will be sustained. And I think this is now really up to the religious leaders and the young people of South Sudan. Pope came for them. The young people of South Sudan, the women of South Sudan, the churches of South Sudan. It's time for them now to build on the foundation that the Holy Father has laid for them and to continue to unite the people of South Sudan. And especially as we push for election, so that then the people get to express their will and decide what they want. But they need genuine options, and we need now to begin preparing them. The church is going to have a big role to play in civic education, in the constitution-making processes. All these processes will require many different voices. They cannot be left alone to the leaders. And as I said multiple times before, the country is not for the leaders to do as they wish. The country belongs to all of us. And we have a stake in it. We have a stake in it to contribute. And I think now that this visit has ended, the real work has now begun for us to build on this momentum, to make sure that the fire that the Holy Father has lit can never be put out.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Peter Biar. With that, I wanted to hear from Ustaz Dengdit Ayok, his perspective as well. Ustaz Dengdit, if you are listening to me, has the visit yielded any tangible results in the last 3 days? And how do we really evaluate the impact of historic visit of the pontiff on the people and the political leaders in the country? I yield the microphone to you, Ustaz Dengdit, to weigh in your perspective. Go ahead.
نعم، تحية لك مرة أخرى. ده بيكون مهم جدا إنه نحن نعمل تقييم في النتائج الملموسة اللي حققتها زيارة البابا إلى البلاد خلال ال3 أيام الماضية. من خلال المتابعة بتاعتنا لهذه الزيارة بنجد إنه البابا بوزنه الديني كزعيم روحي وبوزنه الأخلاقي قدر يلتقي بالقادة السياسيين ويذكرهم على إنه السلام مهم، وجلس معهم طبعا في اجتماع خلف الأبواب المقفولة وتحدث إليهم. طبعا الكلام اللي احنا شايفينه في الإعلام ده يعني ده ما هو الكلام، بس في كلام يعني ورا الأبواب المقفولة.
نعم.
فما يهمنا أكثر هو الكلام اللي حصل ورا الأبواب المقفولة، وإنه قاعد معهم في اجتماع وذكرهم بأهمية بتاعت السلام، لأنه قبل كده كانوا في روما معاهم وناشدهم بالعملية بتاعت السلام. فده يعني عمل تذكير للقادة السياسيين من جديد على إنه المسألة بتاعت تحقيق السلام في البلاد يعني مهمة. ده واحد. نمرة 2، الزيارة ده قدر يذكر القادة السياسيين بأنهم هم يعني أخلفوا بالوعود بتاعتهم اللي هم قطعوه في 2019 عندما زاروا روما في ذلكم الوقت. وفي نفس الوقت برضو الزيارة ده أخجلهم إنهم يعني أخفقوا إنهم ينفذوا السلام بالصورة اللي ناشدهم به البابا في 2019 شهر ابريل لما زاروا روما. وبالتالي من خلال الحاجات نقدر نقول انه من المتوقع الان انه الزياره دي يقدر يشتغل في ضمير القاده السياسيين، وبالتالي يقدر يلتفتوا للعمليه بتاعت السلام. ففي تاثير يعني تاثير آني او تاثير وقتي على القادة السياسيين من خلال هذه الزيارة، لكن التأثير دي متروك لاختبار بتاع زمن عشان الشعب بتاع ساوث السودان يقدر يشوف انه القادة السياسيين ديل خلال الشهر الجاي، الشهرين الجاي، 3 شهور الجاي، انه الاثر بتاع الزيارة دي يستبين، يكون باين لكل الشعب بتاع ساوث السودان خلال 3 أشهر القادمة وخلال السنتين القدامنا. كويس. لكن حاليا في التأثير بتاع الزيارة ده بالنسبة للقادة السياسيين. وبعدين الخطاب بتاع البابا برضو كان فيه كلام جميل، انه قدر يعلم القادة السياسيين في ساوث السودان انه انتوا لازم تخدموا الشعب بتاعكم، وانتوا لازم يعني تنكروا ذاتكم من اجل الشعب بتاعكم، لانه قال لهم انه يعني الانهار ما بتشرب المويه بتاعته كويس، والزهور ما بتطلع الريحه بتاعته لنفسه كويس.
نعم.
وده الاشاره فوق شنو؟ الاشاره فوق انه يعني انت بتكون قاعد في الدنيا دي عشان تنفع الناس التانيين. وبالتالي ده كان رساله بتاعت البابا للقاده السياسيين كويس. يعني حاجه برضه قال لهم انه قال الاجيال البعيده اللي لسه ما ولدوا، الاجيال اللي لسه جايه بعيد، قال بيجوا بيحكموكم بالحاجه اللي انتم قاعدين تعملوه في الوقت الحالي.
نعم
كويس. وده التسكير للقاده السياسيين على انهم يجتهدوا كويس، ويقدر يعني يعملوا اعمال بيقدم البلد لقدام عشان مع الاجيال الجايين بعد.
نعم. Ustaz Dengit, I hope the network will cooperate with Ustaz Dengit so he can continue to weigh in his perspective.
نعم. بحاجات كثيرة أضر بالبلد، فالرسالة دي بيجي كتذكير لهم إنه يا جماعة خدوا المصلحة بتاعت البلد أولا لقدام، وذكروا إنه البلد ده ساوث السودان ده بلد موجود في قلبه، وبالتالي لابد إنه يكون قاعد معهم ويذكرهم بأنهم لازم يصنعوا العملية بتاعت السلام. يبقى النتائج أول تأثير شنو؟ في تأثير وقتي ومتروك لزمن عشان ما نقدر نقيمه بعدين احنا كقادة بتاعت كمواطنين بتاع هذا البلد. ثاني حاجة البابا جاب الأمل للشعب بتاع ساوث السودان، الأمل بتاع إنه يكون في سلام كويس. فالناس دي نقدر نحاكمهم ما هسه ده، لكن نقدر نحاكمهم خلال 3 شهور الجاي، أو نقدر نشوف التأثير بتاع الزيارة ده خلال 3 أشهر القادمة، خلال 4 أشهر القادمة والسنتين المتبقية من عمر تنفيذ اتفاقية السلام. ولو عملوا حاجة الكويس والبلد بقى مستقر، بنقدر كده نقول إنه الزيارة بتاعت بابا فعلا قدر يعمل حاجات كويسة. أنا أتفق مع المتحدث بيتر فييرا جاب في إنه الزيارة قدر يوحد الشعب بتاعنا من جديد، لأنه الذين خرجوا إلى ساحة دكتور جون جارند مابيور كانوا من أبناء الشعب بخلفياتهم الاجتماعية المختلفة. فالزيارة نجحت في أنها حققت الوحدة بين أبناء الشعب. الزيارة برضو نجحت في أنه يعني عكست رسائل إنسانية ودور بتاع الكنيسة تجاه الإنسانية، ودور بتاع الكنيسة تجاه إحقاق العدل برضو. ولو نظرنا برضو للخطاب بتاع الأسقف بتاع الكنيسة المشيخية، يعني كان كلامه واضح جدا إنه بالنسبة للإدارة بتاع الدولة إنه نحن عايزين البلد ده يستقر، والقروش بتاع البلد يتم استخدامه في التنمية بتاع البلد. معناه ده رسالة بيصب في شنو؟ في اتجاه بتاع المواطن. ودي رسالة برضو بيصب في اتجاه بتاع محاربة الفساد، لأنه بلدنا طبعا فيه الأعمال بتاع الفساد. يبقى الرسالة ده كويسة. في نفس الوقت برضو كان في إدانة للأحداث اللي حصلت في منطقة بتاعت كاجي من خلال خطاب بتاع المطران بتاعت كانتربري برضو. فبنقدر نقول إنه دي النتائج الإيجابية والزيارة، إنه الزيارة دي جاب لنا تضامن مع المعاناة بتاع المواطن، وده ادى الامل بالنسبه للمواطن بتاعنا في ساوث السودان، وادى برضه تاثير كبير على القاده السياسيين، وقدر يطرق الضمير بتاعتهم، وقدر يخدهم امام المسؤوليه الكبيره اللي هم قاعدين فيه، ويذكرهم على انه انتم بتقودوا شعب، انتم بتقودوا بلد، وبالتالي يجب انكم تلتزموا بعمليه بتاع السلام في هذا البلد.
نعم.
وبرضه لو نظرنا للخطاب بتاع بابا، هو طبعا خطاب طويل، لكن فيه نقاط يعني بخلي زول يتوقف شويه ويقدر يتابع. البابا تحدث برضه عن انه البلد ده بلد مبارك وبيمر فوق النيل، وبيذكرهم على انه البلد ده بيسموه بلد الخير الوفير، land of great abundance، وبالتالي هو بيذكرنا انه البلد ده بلد مبارك، وبالتالي بلد بيمر من وسطه النيل، وبلد مليء بالخيرات، وبالتالي ده بلد ما يستحق الدمار، ما بلد بيستحق الصراع، ما بلد بيستحق العنف والقتل بصورة نحن شفناه خلال السنوات اللي فاتت. فهذه هي الرسالة اللي بيجيبوا البابا للقادة السياسيين، ويذكرهم بمسؤوليتهم، ومن ناحيته برضو للشعب انه ادى للشعب صورة حقيقية عن دور بتاع القادة الدينيين والدور بتاع الكنيسة في صناعة السلام. يبقى كده الكنيسة عنده دور انه تلعب في انه يحقق السلام ويحقق الامن والاستقرار في البلد، وبالتالي الزيارة ادى القوة للقادة الدينيين برضو عشان يقدروا يتكلموا كما ذكر المتحدث الضيف اللي عندك في الاستوديو. المهم نجيب لحد هنا ونرجع فيما بعد نضيف الكثير.
اشكرك استاذ القدير دينجديد ايوغ. نستمر مع استاذ الدكتور بيتر بيراجاك. استاذ بيتر دكتور بيراجاك, we finished, evaluating, not really necessarily evaluating, but we continue the discussion. Will the Vatican have a follow-up upon the peace process and reconciliation, which the pontiff has initiated through his visit?
Well, first of all, he just left, so we will see what the follow-up will be. But one thing he said before he left is that South Sudan is now closer in his heart. He was before he came. And he's going to want to know, has there been a change in heart with the leaders of South Sudan? Have there been a change in hearts with the people of South Sudan? Have there been a change in hearts with the religious leaders of South Sudan? And there is something very important that Ustaz Dengdit said just now. We only know of what was said in the open by the Pope, but we don't know what was said behind the closed doors. And we know that he had a very intense meeting with the president. And given what he was able to say publicly, which was very critical of the way in which the leaders of South Sudan has governed the country and have been unable to implement the peace agreement, I'm very sure that the messages that he passed in the closed doors were probably even more frank and more blunt. So I'm very sure he would want to know what would be the impact of what he said. Was it concluded? Was it something that we will think about it and then we'll get back to you? Was there a rejection? Was there an agreement? Because as you know, there has been a lot of rumors, even before the Pope went for a visit, that one of the things that he was going to discuss was to talk with the president to prepare himself for an exit and to hand over power to the next generation.
Yes.
To a certain extent, you can say the Pope basically endorsed our idea of generational exit. There should be a generational exit in South Sudan so that the young people of South Sudan and the women of South Sudan take over the leadership of the country and empower the people, invest in people, and make sure that the ideal for which our people struggle, justice, liberty, and prosperity, forever remains in our republic. So we will see. But I'm very sure he would want to follow up, and he would want to continue to speak with young people of South Sudan. One other thing that Pope said he's leaving behind, but
Yes.
also admit that he found in abundance, was hope. There is a statement that he said on, I think, was it the second or the third day? And I want to read it.
Go ahead.
He said, "Do not lose hope. I see your mouth, which have not lose strength to pray and sing. I see you with empty hands, but hearts full of faith. You bear the burden of the painful past, yet you never stop dreaming of a better future." This is what South Sudan is all about. This is what South Sudanese is all about. And this is what it requires for us at this moment. Let us not give up on the idea that is South Sudan. I know that there has been a lot of suffering, and we have hurt one another. But Pope is telling us here, I see the hope in you. I see your mouth, which has not eaten any food or drank any water for the whole day. But that mouth of yours is still sing praises to the Lord Almighty and is still pray for peace and prosperity in South Sudan. He's saying, I'm seeing the pain that is inside you, but I also see the light of a better dawn. This message has really touched me, has really touched my heart. And I believe that it will touch also many South Sudanese, because indeed we are hopeful about our country. I personally am, even though I'm thousands of miles away from South Sudan, my heart is in South Sudan. There is no place I would rather be in the whole earth than our country, South Sudan. There's nowhere else that I feel completely belong than the Republic of South Sudan. So let us have that hope, and let us believe in it, and let us double our efforts so that we change the course of our country. And the way to do it is not through violence. It's not by killing one another. It is not by causing pain to our people. It's not by orphaning more children. It is not by widowing more women. We have to do it better. We have to believe in our people. We have to give them that power back to them and let them decide. Whoever believes that they are good leaders, that they have something better to offer to the people of South Sudan, let them come and offer their vision to the people of South Sudan. But let's make sure that there are alternatives. It cannot be one choice. This is not going to be the elections of Nimeri, where you tick either yes or no. There has to be multiple options. And we, as young people of South Sudan, we really need now to think critically about letting go of the pain, letting go of us being manipulated and being used by political leaders, community leaders that are using us to fight the wars that are not beneficial to our country, that are tearing down our country, that are tearing down the image of South Sudan. Just imagine during the last 3 days what the world has been saying about South Sudan. It's a story of hopelessness, a story of a country that was born out of great hope. But within a very short time, those aspirations were dashed because of the choices that were made by our leaders, choices that were made by our people. And it's still within our power to make the right choices and to change course. And this is what Pope was talking about, using the example of the river Nile. How Nile, is one majestic river, but it have many different sources, different tributaries. You have Atbara, you have Gilo, you have Sobat. So all these rivers, they go, Baragazal River, they all go in to the Nile, Yei River. All these rivers, they find their ways into the Nile, and it makes them one. And those water from different sources, they do not reject one another. They embrace one another to form one mighty river that has been prominent in the history of the world since ever. And we are the custodians of the Nile. We are the gift of the Nile, as Pope Francis reminded us. So there's a lot of examples. There's a lot of examples. And if we truly believe in Lord Almighty, then let us open up our hearts and let us forgive one another. Let us really forgive one another. It's no longer important how much pain I have endured. It's no longer important how much pain you have endured. Let us accept that we have all suffered, and we have all suffered equally. But what we need now is to end this suffering. And to end this suffering is not for us to kill one another. It is not for us to slaughter our young men, whether those are wearing the army uniforms or they are militia or they are what. They are the future of South Sudan. We need to be empowering them, creating economic opportunities for them to realize their God's given potential, rather than cutting them down before their prime. We really need to value the life of our people. If there is any one single message that we should take away from the visit of the Pope, is that let us value human life. And he gave a very important example. You remember when Jesus Christ took his disciples to the Garden of Gethsemane. This is where he was captured. And he was now waiting. He knew that the hour was upon him. The king have sent people to have him be arrested. So people came, and now when they were about to attack Jesus, you remember, Peter jumped with a sword and cut one of the guys in his head.
He cut out his ears.
He cut out the ears. What did Jesus Christ do? He put the ear back.
Yes.
And he said, no more of this. And this is what Pope, the first day when he arrived in South Sudan, this is what he said. No more of this. No more of this. And this is not a plea just to the leaders. It's a plea to all of us. We really now have to begin mending relationship with one another. We really have to begin putting our country first. It's not just about us complaining and talking about the pain that we feel inside our heart. No doubt, those feelings are genuine. There's no one that will ever take that away from us. We have suffered. But this is the time to heal. This is the time to recover. This is the time to bless our lands once more, so that its rich soil grows new fruits, new flowers, new life. We need to breathe new life. And the other example that Pope gave, rivers, they overflow. They're a source of life, but sometimes they can be a source of destruction, especially if the river is not well taken care of. The water can overflow from its bank. So it requires care, nourishment. Life itself, it requires organization. And this is the part that we have been missing. We have not been able to organize our country, organize our state, create that one thing that unites us all. And the solution is not us to divide one another. The more we dig in to our ethnic identities, into our regional identities, we move further away from God's grace and from the idea of a great South Sudan that live up to its potential, as it has been prophesied by Prophet Isaiah, that this is a blessed land, a land of honey and milk. And we can realize that. And I think with the visit of the Pope, this is a beginning where we as young people of South Sudan, we remove fear from our hearts. Let us take fear away. Fear will not take us anywhere. There is no way we will see our Lord Jesus Christ alive. We will have to die first for us to be reunited with him. So death is not something to be feared. It's something, when it comes, is to be accepted, because it is the fate of man. It is the only way in which we transition to the fullness of how Lord has made us. And once we understand that, we should know what is the purpose of life. And as Pope Francis said, it's great when you are happy in life, but it is greater, you are even more happier when you know that others are happy because of you. Let us stop making others sad and painful because of our actions or because of our words. Let us make others to be happy because of our actions and because of our words. Let us be a blessing in one another's life. And I believe if we pass this message consistently across all levels, from the political leadership from the top, to the religious leaders, to our chiefs, to our women leaders, to our youth leaders, we will change our country. We will change the course of history. God knows the potential of our people. This is why I believe the role that South Sudan play now today is not dissimilar to the role that the Eastern Roman Empire played for more than 1,000 years. Eastern Roman Empire, with its capital in what is the present-day Istanbul, Constantinople, it blocked the spread of Islam to the rest of Europe for over thousands of years. They were the one that were holding Islam to the Middle East and into Anatolia. Until 1457, when Constantinople was finally conquered by the Ottoman Empire, Mehmed II, or Mehmed the Great, Mehmed the Conqueror. And since then, Ottoman Empire expanded into Europe, Bulgaria, all the way to the Balkans, Serbia, Albania. All these places now, you see, there's a lot of Muslims. And it's because of how the Ottoman Empire has spread. We in South Sudan has been blocking the spread of the Islam to the rest of the Southern Africa. And we are a nation that God chosen. The way Christianity is spread in our country is very unique. But we don't allow it to really touch our hearts. We only profess it in our mouth as Christian. But what is the value, the number one command of Christianity? It is love, that we love one another as we love ourselves. We love one another just as Christ has loved us and died for us. And if we allow that love to be there is no way then we can hurt one another, because that will be against the command of our Christ, of our Lord. We have to love one another. We have to have hope. We have to have faith in the delivery of our Lord. So if we open up our heart, we will realize the big role that we play. If you see now what has happened in South Sudan since independence, the rate at which Islam is spreading in our country, this is very alarming. We fought for decades to resist someone trying to impose their religion on us. But now, because of division, because of poverty, Islam is spreading in our country. Because of division and focus only on power and the seat of presidency, our country is being broken up by our neighbors. You saw what was happening in Eastern Equatoria, in Capoeira. People were on the street. And I remember I lived in Capoeira, even where the border is now. This was not where the border was during the war. I remember the SPLA used to have a military post at Key Base. My father was deployed there one time. I went there, I saw it with my own eyes. But since then now, Kenya has moved the border and has taken a huge chunk of our land, a huge chunk of our land. And our leaders are focusing in Juba on power, on enriching ourselves or themselves, on mortgaging the oil in advance. We have to change. We have to change. We have to put the nation above us, because it is the nation that will connect the current generation to the future generation. It is the nation that connects those of us today to those who came before us. It is the nation that tells our story as a people. It is the nation that tells how good we are. Because if you leave your house to be dirty, to be underdeveloped, to be full of death and filth and corruption, then what place can you make good? Because home is what really matters. So if we cannot fix our house and we pretend that we can go and buy villas in Dubai or in Malaysia or wherever, and we are leaving our country flooded with sick people, with hopeless people, how can we get the grace and mercy of Lord? We have to change. And this is a big part of the message of the Pope, is a reminder of our responsibility as Christians, not only to one another, but also to our faith and to the purpose that the Lord has given us, so that we keep the border there and we protect the rest of the Africa from being converted to Islam. And we have seen the impact of this already in different countries. I remember one of the countries that I visited about a decade ago was Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso at the time was a Christian nation. I think about 80% of the population was Christian, 20% was Muslim. If you go back now, it has reversed. It's like 70 to 80% Muslim and 20 to 30% Christian. Why? Because of crisis. And money is flowing in.
Yes.
And because of poverty, people are being bribed and people are converting into things. And all these mosques are being opened. Now, Juba, I was calling, while the Pope was, people were waiting outside at John Grant Mausoleum because people started arriving like since midnight. And while they're waiting there for the prayer, there was too much noise. I was talking to some of the people who attended. Everywhere in Juba, you can hear shouting, mosque, people shouting, the Muslim, Allah Akbar, all these things. This is what you are hearing. We really have to pay attention. We are losing the country for which we sacrifice more than 2.5 million lives. And is it about the right time for the church to wake up? Their duty is to the Christian. Their duty is to Jesus Christ. Their duty is not to political leaders. They don't need to please them. They don't need to be afraid of them. They need to speak the truth to them. They need to speak the truth to the people of South Sudan.
Indeed, Ustaz Dr. Peter Berajak, yes, the momentum is started and the message of hope actually has reached the people of South Sudan. I guess, in my own opinion, that actually South Sudan should not be the same after the visit of His Holiness, the Pope Francis, to South Sudan. Ustaz Peter Berajak, you talk about the private talk of President Kiir with His Holiness, Pope Francis. Let's talk about that. Let's also talk about the meeting of Pope Francis with the civil society and internally displaced people, IDPs. How do you look at this, and what do you think were the issue it had discussed with them? I wanted our people to know this.
Well, I don't want to speculate about what was discussed in the meeting with the president, because I haven't been able to find out exactly what was discussed. All I know is that the meeting was intense. And this was very visible from the body language of the political leaders from when they came out. I'm sure Pope expressed his disappointment, his profound disappointment to them for making promises that they could not keep, especially promises of peace. And by not using their power and privilege to help the people of South Sudan to discover peace and to live in harmony with one another. Now, what he specifically asked them or what the leaders say, we do not know. But we know that the discussion with the civil society and IDPs was really about giving them hope and empowering them, letting them know that there are people that still believe in them. And although the leaders do not believe, imagine, our president has never visited even the IDP camp in Juba since 2013. And there are kids that were born there since 2013 who are now 10 years old. They have no memory of anywhere else in South Sudan. They have been confined to IDP camps. Dr. Riak has not visited these people. No one has visited them. They feel forgotten. They feel unseen. And they're enduring a lot of hardship there. People should not think that living in a UN camp or IDP camp is a great thing. No, it's a terrible life. But this is what our people have been confined to because they fear their own leaders. This is why the country is deserted, because they fear their leaders. So Pope was telling them, I see you. I have not forgotten you. The world has not forgotten you. And that is empowering. That is empowering. You could see the faces of our people. This was profound for them. It was very profound. So I really hope that we really open up our hearts, not because of the Pope, but by Pope coming, he made it possible for us to see one another, to hear one another's pain. And it's up to us now to decide what we do with it. It's not the Pope that is going to do something about it. It is us. And the only way that the visit of the Pope to our country will be successful is if we embrace peace and we begin reconciliation and harmony and restoring competency, dignity to our country and to our government.
Thank you, Dr. Peter Berajak. With that, I wanted to go to Ustaz Dengdi Dayog. Dengdi Dayog, لو بتسمعنا أنا داير منك إيضاحات حول الموضوع الأسئلة اللي أنا طرحته. لو عايز أكرر سؤال يمكنني أيضا تكرار السؤال. أستاذ دengdi تسمعني؟
نعم أنا بسمعك.
اتفضل.
يس أنا عايز أضيف نقاط مهمة حول مسألة بتاعت الزيارة.
تفضل.
وده بالرجوع شوية للخطاب بتاعت البابا، لأنه الخطاب بيحتوي على كثير من النقاط الحيوية. نعم. وتذكير المسؤولين في الدولة بالمسؤولية الملقاة على عاتقهم أو على عواتقهم. البابا فرانسيس كان بيخاطب الرئيس ونواب الرئيس باسم ربنا، وبيقول لهم إنه ده ربنا اللي نحن بنصلي ليه في روم، وده نفس ربنا اللي هو يعني وديع وهو متواضع القلب، وده بيقتبس مباشرة من إنجيل متى 11:29. نعم. بيقول لهم إنه ده نفس ربنا اللي ناس كتار في البلد ده يعني مؤمنين به، وقام ذكرهم يعني قال لهم إنه ده الوقت عشان انتوا ما يكون في الحاجات التالية. يعني باللغة الإنجليزية المسائل بتاعت إبس كويس، ذكروا منه ما يكون في إبس في الموضوع بتاع تنفيذ اتفاقية السلام اللي هو بالعربي يعني الشروط، إنه ما يكون في شروط في التنفيذ بتاع اتفاقية سلام أو في تحقيق عملية سلام، وما يكون في لكن، لأنه ديل ifs and buts, ifs or buts. قال لي ما يكون في شروط وما يكون في شنو في كلمة لكن في تنفيذ بتاع عملية السلام في البلد. ديل اثنين ديل. ثالثا ذكر القادة السياسيين وقال لهم إنه انتوا اتجنبوا الإلقاء بتاع اللوم على الآخر. كويس، يعني مثلا الرئيس يقول انه النائب الاول هو المشكله، والنائب الاول يقول انه الرئيس هو المشكله، او النواب الثانيين يقولوا فلان المشكله. اللعبه بتاعت اللوم، ذا جيم بلاي، شفتها؟ البابا يعني ذكروا منه الكلام ده ما يمشي لقدام. ونحن ظللنا يعني طوال الفتره اللي فاتت دي ظللنا نشاهد العمليه دي قدامنا، عمليه بتاعت انه في طرف بيقوم بيلغي اللوم على الطرف الثاني، بالذات الرئيس تلقوا بيلغي اللوم على النائب الاول. يعني تكرر كثير في الفترات اللي فاتت، شفت كيف؟ فالبابا قال لهم انه انتوا عملوا سلام من غير شروط، من غير كلمات زي ايف او زي كلمات زي لكن، وانتوا تمشوا لقدام، يعني يخرجوا من اللعبه بتاعت انهم يعني بيلوموا بعضهم الاخر، وبالتالي ده بيقوم بيضيع الوقت وما بيخلي السلام المفترض يكون السلام الحقيقي المواطن يستمتع به، يكون سلام الحقيقي.
نعم.
بمعنى البابا داري يقول لهم شنو؟ البابا داري يقول لهم انه يعني ما في زول يشوف زول ثاني عقبه امام تحقيق السلام في البلد. بمعنى ثاني البابا داري يقول لهم انه يعني لازم تطلعوا برا من الصراع السياسي اللي انتم منغمسين فيه لفتره زمنيه طويله جدا. ونحن كشعب بتاع ساوث السودان هنراقب الوضع بعد الخطاب بتاع بابا للقاده السياسيين، هنظل نراقب الوضع ونشوف التاثير بتاع الخطاب بتاع بابا ده في الوقت الراهن وفي المدى البعيد في القاده السياسيين ديل. فدي يعني واحدة من النقاط المهمة. بعد كده البابا خش في شنو؟ في كثير من اللاءات في الخطاب بتاعه، يعني بالإنجليزي بيقول no more bloodshed، لا مزيد من سفك الدماء، no more conflict، لا مزيد من النزاعات، no more violence and mutual recriminations. إنه ما فيش مزيد من العنف وما فيش يعني تجريم متبادل للآخر
والفساد
فيما يتعلق بالعملية بتاعت السلام، وعن إنه منو يا مسؤول عن الكارثة اللي قاعد تحصل في البلد. نعم جونكور؟
والفساد أنا قلتها.
كويس. ففي الخطاب في نو مور اللي هي لا مزيد من كذا. كويس. فبيقول لنا no more leaving your people athirst for peace، انه ما تخلوا الشعب بتاعكم متعطش لشنو؟ للدماء للسلام، يعني ما تخلوا شعب متعطش للسلام. no more destruction، لا مزيد من الدمار. كويس. ده الخطاب بتاع البابا. it is time to build. كويس. بيقول لهم ده وقت بتاع البناء، نحن نبني البلد. leave the time of war behind and let the time of peace down. انتوا خلوا الوقت بتاع الحرب ومن وراكم. كويس. وخلوا الوقت بتاع السلام او الصباح بتاع السلام يشرق. ده يمكن النقاط الاساسيه والمهمه جدا في الخطاب اللي قدمه بابا للقاده السياسيين في البلاد. فدي من الحاجات يعني اللي قاعده تكون مهمه جدا. وده يعني القاده السياسيين في بلدنا اللي عندهم ضمير ولو عندهم احترام للانسان الموجود في هذا البلد هم هيلتزموا بهذا الكلام. ده التوقعات طبعا بتاع الشعب.
نعم.
لكن بعد كده الزمن هيكون اختبار كويس قدامهم. The growth of a sound democracy is essential to the life of a republic. ده كلام برضو بابا قال لهم انه النمو بتاع الديمقراطية تذكير برضو بأهمية الديمقراطية في خطاب بتاع البابا، وليس مسألة الديمقراطية فقط، إنما تم تذكيرهم أيضا بمسألة احترام حقوق الإنسان في الخطاب اللي قدمه بابا في أول يوم اللي هو وصل فوقه للبلد يوم الجمعة. يبقى القادة السياسيين ذكروا منه ما يودونا تاني للحرب، ما يكون في سفك دماء من جديد، يحترموا حقوق الإنسان، يلتزموا بالديمقراطية. كل هذه ورد يعني في خطاب بتاع البابا للقادة السياسيين. البابا أيضا تحدث عن العدالة. كويس. تحدث برضو عن المسألة العدالة في الخطاب بتاعته. قال لهم it should be kept in mind that there is no peace without justice. إنه لازم تذكروا دائما إنه يعني ما فيش سلام من غير عدالة. كويس. وقام اقتبس كلمات برضو بتاع البابا الراحل يوحنا بولس الثاني في الكلمة بتاعته اللي هو شاركوا في سنة 2002. يبقى المسألة بتاع التذكير للقادة السياسيين بضرورة العدالة وأنه ما فيش سلام بالعدالة دي قضية مهمة جدا. ولو نظرنا في اتفاقية السلام المنشفة الموقعة في سبتمبر 2018 بالخرطوم، الأطراف بتاع الاتفاقية وقعوا سلام، وفي سلام في مسألة بتاعت العدالة الانتقالية موجودة في الاتفاقية بتاعت السلام. وافتكر ده اللي بيشير له البابا فرانسيس في انه ما فيش سلام بدون شنو؟ بدون عدالة. وبالتالي نحن عايزين نقول شنو؟ انه مع التنفيذ بتاع اتفاقية السلام يجب تكوين المحكمة الحجينة ومحاسبة كل الذين تورطوا في ارتكاب الجرائم وارتكاب الفظاعات وانتهاكات حقوق الإنسان ضد المواطن في البلد. ليه؟ لأنه ما فيش سلام من غير عدالة. فدي رسالة مهمة جدا يعني، أو ده نقطة مهمة جدا جاء من النقاط اللي موجود في الخطاب بتاع بابا. فدي يعني حاجات مهمة جدا اللي الشعب بتاعتنا تابعوا باهتمام شديد وتابعوا بإنصات شديد. عشان كده أنا كنت بقول للناس في المرات اللي فاتت إنه يا جماعة الزيارة بتاعت بابا ما مجرد ترانيم، الزيارة بتاعت بابا ما عبارة عن رجيز، ما صلوات، كويس، ما قراية بتاعت كتاب مقدس وكذا. نو، الزيارة دي جاي تخاطب قضايا جوهرية بيعاني منه المواطن. ولذلك الإخوة والأخوات اللي كانوا بيقولوا لنا إنه البابا رجل دين وهو بس جاي يصلي ويقدم البركة للناس وبالتالي ما عنده علاقة بالقضايا بتاعت السياسة، الكلام ده ما صح كويس، بدليل إنه الخطاب هو العديد من القضايا السياسية، وده في خطاب يقدمه للقادة السياسيين. ولذلك فهذه زيارة ليست زيارة دينية وصلوات فقط، إنما زيارة سياسية في المقام الأول وبامتياز، وبعد كده زيارة دي لبس الثوب بتاع الدين، لكن هي زيارة سياسية في المقام الأول، لأنه بابا بيخاطب السياسيين وبيحثهم على أنهم يلتزموا بالقضايا الجوهرية. يعني نحن عندنا بلد فوقه حكام ما همهم السلام للمواطن، حكام ما همهم العدالة للمواطن، حكام ما همهم الأمن والاستقرار للمواطن. لكن هذه الزيارة أتت
أستاذ دينجيت hopefully network cooperate عشان تكمل ما تبقى ونواصل مع أستاذ الدكتور بيتر بيراجاك.
والتقى كذلك بالنازحين داخليا الموجودين في مقار بتاع الأمم المتحدة في أماكن مختلفة، وعلى حسب علمي الناس ديل جايبينهم من معسكرات بتاع الأمم المتحدة في أماكن مختلفة جدا من البلاد، واحدين جايبينهم من ملكال ومن واو من بانتي والحتات ده. وكان في معلومة إنه بابا برضه كان داير ينزل في بانتي، ولكن للصعوبة بتاعت الظروف الموجودة في بانتي وهناك ما بيقدر يمشي، وبالتالي لموا ناس ديل وجابهم لهم. وده فيه درس للقادة السياسيين كويس. الدرس للقادة السياسيين إنهم يهتموا بالإنسان، يهتموا بالإنسان الموجود في هذا البلد. وعشان كده أنا دائما نقتبس من جديد في الخطاب بتاع بابا، بيقول لهم let each citizen understand that the time has come to stop being carried along by the tainted waters of hatred, tribalism, regionalism, and ethnic differences. It is time to sail together towards the future. البابا بيذكر المواطن، يعني الجزء ده من الخطاب موجه للمواطن، إنه خلي المواطن يفهم بأنه الوقت هان لإيقاف أو لتوقف، يعني إنه التيار بتاع الموية بتاع الكراهية، التيار بتاع الموية بتاع القبلية والنزعة الإقليمية regionalism كويس، وethnic differences الفوارق الإثنية، إنه المواطن يتوقف، ما يكون قبلي، ما يكون عنده الكراهية، ما يكون عنده الترايباليزم، وما عنده يكون يكره الناس التانيين اللي هو ما من المجموعة الإثنية اللي هو قاعد ينتمي له. إذن الخطاب بتاع بابا فيه مضامين بتاع رسائل مهمة جدا بالنسبة للقيادة السياسية في البلد وبالنسبة للمواطن في البلد. وبالتالي نحن حتى نحن بننشر في السوشيال ميديا وبنقدم خطابات، يجب نحن نبتعد من الكراهية ونبتعد من القبلية ونبتعد من النزعة الإقليمية ونبتعد من افتعال النعرات الإثنية الموجودة بين الناس. والبابا بيقول it is time to sail together toward the future، إنه ده وقت سوا أن احنا نقوم نبحر سويا نحو المستقبل المجيد، المستقبل الزاهي. فدي نقاط مهمة جدا يعني جاء في الخطاب بتاع سيادة البابا، ودي عملية مهمة جدا. فلحد هنا أنا هجيب ومن ثم أعود لاحقا وأتكلم في النقاط التالية عشان كمان ما أفسح الفرصة لضيفك الثاني.
أشكرك أستاذ دينجيت أيوب، كل الشكر لك. And with that we continue. I think we left only with two questions. Ustaz Dr. Peter Berajak, I must ask this question. Will the political leaders dedicate themselves to the pilgrimage of peace and call and appeal made by Pope Francis during his closed-door meeting with them on Friday, February 3rd? Will this call, peace, end up like the April 2019 call, peace and kiss in Rome? will repartilize peace agreement deal be implemented within the 24 months that a 24-month extension? I think this is my final question to you, and after that I will ask you for the final remark. Go ahead, Dr. Peter Berajak. You muted.
My brother, thank you. As I said before, the most important thing of this visit is to restore hope, to remind people that there is always a possibility to overcome the bitter past and to open a new dawn. And as a result, we should also be hopeful. I know we have been disappointed in the leaders of South Sudan for so long. And even it's almost unthinkable to believe that they can change. But they are also human beings. Flesh and blood is in their bodies. They also feel the Spirit of God dwells in them, just as it dwells in each and every one of us. And I think this is a critical moment for them, because the Pope had kissed their feet before. They did not change. They continue with division, hatred. But now the Pope has come again, and he's reminded them. And he said, history will remember this. History will remember those who have squandered the opportunities, those who have divided the people, those who continue to serve themselves and not the people. But if you change, then the people will remember you for good things you have done. Yes. Otherwise, they will always remember the bad thing that you have done, and they will cut you away from their memory. They will cut you away from the history of South Sudan. And that is not a simple warning. We have been saying this, by the way, that the leaders, many of them did some good work during the liberation struggle.
Yes.
You know, they fought bravely to liberate the country, and they made a lot of sacrifices. That was a good thing for them. They did it for the people of South Sudan. They did not do it for themselves. The problem is, since we got our independence, they have been more concerned about themselves and how to serve themselves. And this is where the tragedy has come. So the question now is, will they change their behavior and allow the country to move forward, to move toward peace? Will they begin using the resources of the country to invest in the future of young people and women? Will they use the resources to empower, or they will use it only to pretend that they are doing development, but they are really looting the country by putting the money into their pockets? This is what the Pope mentioned about fraudulent business dealings. And I, when he mentioned it, I was looking at people, and you could see that people were concerned about what he was saying. You could see from the body language. But Pope was very right to point that out. Fraudulent business dealings are the real threat. This is the source of corruption in South Sudan, especially in the construction of roads, delivery of food, and the military equipment. This is where a lot of corruption is happening in South Sudan. And of course, at the central bank, with the exchange rate, fraudulent exchange rate, the lines of credits, all these things that have been used to loot the country. The question now is, will the leaders choose to be remembered as those who, although they created a civil war and they turned the country apart and people died, they were able to change and bring back hope and peace for the country? That is one option. Or will they remain addicted to power, and they will concern about power? And with that, they will be remembered as power-hungry people who squandered the aspiration of the millions of their own citizens. So it's really up to them. But I want to say that the visit, as I said from the very beginning, should not be about the leaders and what the leaders want and what the leaders want to see happen. It should be about the people. It should not, for me at this point, it doesn't really matter what the leaders will do. Either they will change, we will be great, we will welcome, we will praise the Lord for that, or they will remain the same as they were before, in which case we have to find a way to get them out. We have to find a way to get them out. And now there is a real path forward. And that path forward is through unity, is through us joining hands, preparing ourselves for the election. Not elections that we will only just have Salva Kiir, Riek Machar, Lama Kol, Thomas Cirillo, the usual people running, but election where there will be a real, genuine alternative to the people of South Sudan, where there is a really different vision, different energy, different spirit of leadership. We as people can do that. We don't need the leaders to do that. They have now done their part, as I said last week, by writing to the United Nations and asking the United Nations to help them. They have done their part. We have to congratulate them and we have to thank them for that initiative that they took.
Indeed.
What we need to do now is to make sure we take it from there. And instead of this being a minor deal in Juba, we make sure it is authorized by the UN Security Council. Mm-hmm. And once we start working with UNMISS on the ground, we empower our people. We speak about what needs to happen. There is something important that Deng did mention before when he talked about what the Pope said. Yes, the Pope said there is no peace without justice. Ubardu, he said, Mafish Adala Bidun Huria. So you cannot just talk about justice without freedom.
Freedom, correct.
And freedom is critical. And freedom also means freedom of speech. Mm-hmm. Freedom to criticize your leader, to tell your leader, here is where you are failing. Mm-hmm. Here is where you can do better. Freedom to associate with your fellow South Sudanese and build a political movement that has vision and ideas for the country. This is the time now to deliver this freedom to our people. And I appreciate the gestures that the president made when he pardoned some people. Mm-hmm. I think 71 inmates were pardoned. Mm-hmm. This was wonderful. But I was surprised that although he was able to pardon people who were on death row, who have killed people, he did not pardon Abraham Chol. Abraham Chol was a religious leader. Mm-hmm. What did Abraham Chol do? He said that there is a better future where this leadership is no longer there. The president is unable to forgive him, right? And he has not pardoned him. The same thing with the journalists who were arrested for alleged leakage of the video. They were not pardoned, And this is where a sense contradiction, right? You cannot be saying here, okay, I'm showing this gesture. You are pardoning people that have killed people, but you are bitter with people that have not even killed a fly.
Just spoke.
People who have not harmed an ant, and you are keeping them in jail, and you are telling the Pope to bless you. Like I see the picture when at the airport when the Pope is getting on his plane, he touched the head of the president. That's a blessing.
Yes.
And although that can be blessing, if the heart of the president is not pure and not prepared for real peace and reconciliation, then that will just be meaningless. Reconciliation is not just with Riek. They should not take it as them as leaders reconciling among themselves. We know that they've been working together, looting the resources, doing all other terrible things for the country. But the question is, can they reconcile the nation? That is really the question. And if he cannot reconcile with someone who imagined a different future in which he's not a leader, and that is something that is still bitter for up to now, that even though he can free 36 people who are on death row, he cannot free someone who simply said there is a different future for South Sudan without Salva Kiir being the leader. That is all telling. And this is why I keep saying it's not about what will happen with the leaders. Because Mama Rebecca said their hearts are so full of bitterness. She said it at the All Saints Cathedral on Saturday. He said, our hearts are full of bitterness. And she meant them as leaders. That means that is the top leadership. And if their hearts are full of bitterness, then they can never reconcile the people of South Sudan. So I'm glad that they have asked the UN to help to prepare elections. This is what we are going to focus on. Not what the leaders will do, but what we as people of South Sudan are going to do in partnership with the international community. And I believe if we work like that, we can rescue this country and we can prove to the world that we are not as broken as the world make it appear. Yes, we may have issues, but we still fundamentally believe in a better future. We still know that we are each other's keepers. And we have to treat one another the way we want to be treated. We cannot be doing terrible things to our fellow citizen that we will never accept to be done to us.
Yes.
And we have to embrace this, especially if you see some of these crises happening. Is the failure of people to implement the great commandment of Christ. And that is, do to others as you want to be done to you. So if you see something that you will never want to be done to you, don't do it to your brother.
Yes.
Don't do it to your sister. Do to them what you would want to be done to you. And this is a message we have to take. If the leaders are not providing that example, then let's leave them. Let's come to one another. Let's talk. As Bishop Enoch Tombe said several weeks ago, let's have our own peace, people to people peace. Not a peace that is brought by the leaders, but the peace that comes from within us. Peace that we make among ourselves. That is possible. That peace, we can deliver it. We as people of South Sudan, working together with our churches, we as young people of South Sudan, working with our mothers and our sisters, we can provide the real peace that will ensure that our country moves forward from the crises that we have been facing.
Dr. Peter Berajak, thank you. It's so touching. And everybody who watching here tonight, this is the message that we need, really. That's the message that we want. I will be back with you. Let me go ahead and give Dengdi Ayog a chance here to weigh in, and then I will come back for your final remarks. Ustaz Dengdi Ayog, Lobetasmani, and your perspective in this regard. Same thing that I asked Dr. Peter Biar, and then I will go for him to give remarks, final, and then I will go for you as well to give you final remarks. Dengdi Ayog, Tasmana?
نعم أنا أسمعك. ذكرني لي سؤال بس.
Okay, السؤال كان بيقول, will the political leaders dedicate themselves to the pilgrimage of peace, the call and appeal made by Pope Francis during his closed-door meeting with them on Friday, February 3rd? Will this call for peace end up like the April 2019 call for peace and kiss in Rome? Also, I added another question. Will the revitalized peace agreement deal be implemented in the next 24-month extension that they have proposed? So these are the final question, and then we will go for the final remark later. Go ahead, Sadengid.
شكرا جزيلا الأخ جون كور. دي أسئلة مهمة جدا فيما يتعلق بصناعة السلام في بلادنا العزيزة جمهورية السودان الجنوبي. لكن قبل ما أنا أجاوب على الأسئلة دي داير أقول إنه أنا ركزت كثير في خطاب بتاع البابا، وأخرجت منه يعني نقاط أساسية ومهمة، ودي نقاط يعني له علاقة بشعب بشكل مباشر. البابا ما خلى أي حاجة. البابا يتكلم عن الأمن، يعني زي ما هو يتكلم عن السلام والمصالح، يتكلم برضو عن الأمن في البلد، ويتكلم عن ضرورة السيطرة على يعني السلاح، كويس إنه سلاح منتشر، وبالتالي يجب إنه يكون في آلية للسيطرة على السلاح. لأنه لو السلاح يعني مستمر في الانتشار في أيدي بتاع الناس، فده هيؤدي إلى الموت ويؤدي إلى دمار كثير. ده نقطة برضو لمسوا البابا. آخر نقطة داير أطلع بيه برضو من الخطاب، نقطة بتاع التنمية. طبعا الجانب ده موجه للقيادة السياسية. الجانب بتاع التنمية برضو موجه للقيادة السياسية، لأنه الذي يقوم بالخدمات، بيقوم بتقديم الخدمات للشعب هو الناس المسؤولين في القيادة السياسية بتاع البلد. البابا يتكلم عن يعني بناء مراكز رعاية طبية في الخطاب بتاعه. يتكلم عن البنية التحتية، يتكلم عن المدارس، ويتكلم عن يعني محاربة الأمية. كويس. ويتكلم عن إنه يعني يتكلم عن تعليم بتاع العيال والمستقبل بتاع العيال. ولو نحن نظرنا للقيادة السياسية الموجودة حاليا من 2005 لحد الآن 18 في سلطة، 18 سنة في سلطة، الناس دي ما قدروا يقوموا بأنه يقدموا الخدمات بطريقة اللي قالوا بيه بابا. إذن بابا أنا بشوف في خطابه للقيادة السياسية وللشعب ما خلى يعني أي حاجة. كويس. يعني خاطب كل القضايا الأساسية، القضايا بتاعت بناء بتاع الدولة بداية من السلام كأساس مهم جدا في بناء بتاع الدولة. برضو أنا بجي لاتفاق مع المتحدث بتاعك في الاستوديو الأستاذ بيتر ديراجاك عن إنه التركيز بتاعتنا الآن ما هيكون حول إنه القيادة السياسية تعمل شنو في البلد. نعم. لكن التركيز يكون إنه إحنا كشعب بتاع ساوث السودان إحنا المفترض نعمل شنو عشان نغير الواقع بتاعتنا. ليه؟ لأنه الأمل بتاع الشعب يعني مخيب في القيادة السياسية الحالية. وأنا بتكلم هنا في واحد علق هناك، واحد من المواطنين اللي قاعد يسمعنا علق قال ديل ما بيتغيروا حتى لو يسوع المسيح نفسه نزل لهم، يعني هم ما هيتغيروا. يبقى ده كلام بتاع مواطن فقط أمل في القيادة السياسية الحالية، رغم الزيارة بتاعت البابا دي ورغم المناشدات ورغم التذكير القيادة السياسية بالمسؤولية بتاعته الوطنية. وبالتالي الشعب بتاع ساوث السودان لابد انه يجي بطريق انه يقدر يغير القيادة السياسية الحالية بوسائل اخرى، من ضمنها الوسيلة بتاعت الانتخابات اللي ذكروا الاخ المتحدث من الجانب الاخر. وبالتالي نحن نقدر برضه شنو نقدم الكلام، لانه واحد من رجال الدين المتحدثين برضه اللي هو المطران بتاع الكنيسه المشيخيه ذكر انه الشباب بتاع البلد ده لازم ينهضوا كويس، وانه هم يغيروا الواقع ده بشنو بانفسهم. يبقى المطران ده زي هو بيتفق معانا يعني انه القياده السياسيه الراهنه في البلاد ما قياده جديره بانه هتعمل حاجه. وبالتالي الامل بتاعه الوحيد بقى في الشباب بتاع البلد ده انه يقدر يصحوا من نوم حقهم، يقدر يحبوا وطنهم، ويقدر يعملوا تغيير جذري في هذا البلد، وبالتالي ينقذوا البلد من الكارثه بتاع 18 سنه اللي مضت. والقياده السياسيه الحاليه اهتمامه ما في التطوير بتاع البلد، اهتمامه ما في مساله بتاعت السلام، اهتمامه في الحفاظ على المقاعد بتاعتهم في السلطه، والحفاظ على الامتيازات، والحفاظ على الاموال بتاعتهم داخل الدوله وخارج الدوله. كويس. لانه نحن وصلنا لمرحله بتاعت انه افراد قاعدين داخل القياده السياسيه في البلد بقوا يشتروا لهم بيوت في دول الجوار، بقوا يشتروا لهم بيوت في دول العالم الخارجي زي استراليا ودول اخرى. فبالتالي الامل اللي كان معقود على القيادات السياسيه ديل، الامل ده خلاص زال، والشعب ما هيكون عنده اي امل فيهم من جديد رغم الزياره بتاعت البابا ده. والقاده السياسيين ديل لعبوا دور تاريخي في التحرير بتاع الوطن، وده رصيد محفوظ بالنسبه لهم. لكن عندما جاء الفتره بتاعت اداره الوطن، فهم ما قدروا يمشوا للامام باداره بتاع الدوله بالصوره اللي كان متوقع، انما افتعلوا الحروبات ودخلوا في مساله بتاع تصفيه الحسابات بيناتهم، وبالتالي الوطن بقى وطن مشتت، والمواطن هو الذي الان يدفع الثمن. المواطن الان نازح داخليا في وطنه، والمواطن الان لاجئ في دول الجوار، المواطن الآن هو الذي يموت، المواطن الآن هو الذي لا يجد لقمة العيش كويس. فبالتالي الطريق إلى الأمام إنه يكون في قيادة شبابية جديدة تقوم وتقدر يعني تمسك بزمام الأمور وتغير الأوضاع في البلاد وتقدر تقود هذا الوطن إلى الأمام، ويعيد الأمن ويعيد الاستقرار ويقدم الخدمات، وبلادنا تنطلق من جديد من بلد بتاعت حروبات وبلد بتاعت كراهية والانقسام على أساس عرقي وأساس إثني إلى بلد متوحد وبلد ما يعني مليان بالأمل وبلد عنده مستقبل لقدام. ده الحاجات المطلوبة الآن نحن نقدر نقوم به كشباب. إذن هذه الدعوة لجميع الشباب في جمهورية السودان الجنوبي داخل وخارجه، إنه نحن كشباب يجب إننا نمسك أيدينا مع بعض ونقدر نغير هذه الأوضاع. والتاريخ مليء ب يعني أمثلة كثيرة جدا. القيادات السياسية الحالية لما دخلوا الغابة في سنة 83 كانوا هم شباب في عمرهم وقضوا شبابهم في هروبات، وفي النهاية قدروا يجيبوا دولة وبقى يديروا دولة، لكنهم فشلوا في إدارة بتاع الدولة. فيجب أن ينهض الشباب من جديد ويفنوا طاقاتهم في إنهم يجيبوا التغيير، ويجيبوا هذا التغيير بوسائل سلمية عشان البلد يقدر يشهد الاستقرار ويشهد التنمية ويشهد تحول اجتماعي وتحول حقيقي في بلد بتاعنا. هذا هو المطلوب الآن. المطلوب الآن ليس الاعتماد على القيادات السياسية من جديد. ولذلك دي دعوة بنقدمه لكل شباب، إنه شباب انتوا يا شباب لازم تتنظموا، تخشوا تنظيمات سياسية، تخشوا حركات سياسية تدعو للتغيير وتبقوا نشطين. نحن كلنا نقدر نجيب التغيير السياسي في بلد بتاعتنا بوسائل سلمية. فهذا هو المطلوب الآن، وهذا هو الطريق إلى الأمام. لأنه الزيارة البابوية دي عنده اثنين أثر زي ما أنا ذكرت قبل، عنده الأثر الآني وعنده الأثر المستقبلي. الأثر الآني الآن نحن شفناه خلال 3 أيام وذكرناه قبل، لكن الأثر المستقبلي ما مضمون. يبقى نحن نكون الأثر المستقبلي لهذه الزيارة، نقدر نغير الأوضاع داخل بلادنا، وبالتالي نحن نكون الرواد بتاع التغيير ونقدر نقود هذا الوطن إلى أرض الميعاد، أرض الميعاد بتاع الخدمات، أرض الميعاد بتاع الأمان والاستقرار. ولحد هنا أنا بجيب أستاذ جونكو.
أشكرك كل الشكر أستاذ دينجديد أيوك، ونستمر مع دكتور أستاذ بيتر بيرا جاك. دكتور أستاذ بيتر بيرا جاك، أنا داير كلمتك الأخيرة، the last remarks, the last word to the people of South Sudan in this very, very important day. You know, the visit of Pope Francis to the Republic of South Sudan وآثاره في موضوع ده. Thank you so much. Your final remarks.
Thank you so much, Jonkur, for hosting us today. It's been a pleasure to join you and Ustaz Dengdid to share with you our views on the visit of His Holiness Pope Francis and the Archbishop of Canterbury and the moderator of the Church of Scotland. I want to say to the people of South Sudan, thank you so much for the way in which you have welcomed the religious leaders into our country, the ways in which you have opened up your hearts and shared with them your struggles and your aspiration. I want the young people of South Sudan to understand that the Holy Father came purposefully to come and see them, to come and empower them, to come and give them hope. The mission that we have now been tasked, as has been prophesied by Isaiah, it is to unlift the heavy burdens and to let the oppressed go free. Our people are oppressed. Our people need to be free. This is the challenge that we face. And no other generations of South Sudanese that have come before us have faced greater challenges than what we face now. But I believe that we are prepared for us to do our duty to ensure that we live up to the purpose for which God created us and kept us up to this moment. And this is to ensure that there is peace, justice, and liberty in our country. This is the mission that we now face. So I want each and every young person to understand that the hopes, aspirations of our people and the prophecies of Lord Almighty in the land that we now inhabit, the land that we call South Sudan, must be realized by the actions of our hands. That is the challenge we face. Now is the time to act. Now is the time to plan. Now is the time to organize. And if we do so, the Spirit of the Lord Almighty will be with us and will propel us forward to bring change to our country and turn our country into a paradise on earth, so that it become truly the land of honey and milk. I believe we can do this, and I have no doubt we are going to do this. Thank you so much, Jonker, and I want to thank the people of South Sudan for tuning in today to join us in this important conversation. May God bless you. May God help the Holy Father and the other guests to travel back to their countries in peace. And may this visit be a source of hope, happiness for them, and also for our people. I thank you so much in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Thank you, Dr. Peter Birajak, for coming and talking to the people of South Sudan and having a great conversation. I really, really appreciate it. And we begin from here, what we can offer to the people of South Sudan. Thank you so much. Have a good day. With that, I will tune in to Ustaz Dengdir Ayok for his final remark as well. And later, Ustaz Abdullah Garang, Ustaz Moses Edward, they will continue in Clubhouse. With that, Ustaz Dengdir Ayok, I yield the microphone to you for your final remarks. Ustaz Dengdir.
Yes, شكرا أخي الأستاذ جونكور مايول على هذا النقاش المهم. الداير أقوله للشعب بتاع ساوث السودان هو إنه نحن الحاضر ونحن المستقبل، ونحن من سيصنع التغيير ويقلب الأوضاع الحالية رأسا على العقب، ونحن من جديد نصنع الأمل المفقود. نحن من جديد ننهض من الرماد بتاع الدمار ونشق الطريق إلى الأمام نحو المستقبل المشرق اللي نحن كلنا عايزينه. الناس تنسى القيادة السياسية الحالية وتشتغل مع بعض للصناعة بتاع التغيير. وفي الإسلام يقول إنه الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروه أنفسهم. فدي المرحلة نحن الآن وصلنا فوق، إنه ربنا ما هيجي يغير الوضع نحن فوقه حتى نغيره نحن يعني بأنفسنا. فده الرسالة الأخيرة أنا داير نرسله لأبناء وبنات شعبنا في جمهورية السودان الجنوبي، وبنشيد بهم على استقبالهم للبابا رئيس الكنيسة الكاثوليكية حول العالم ورئيس دولة الفاتيكان، وكذلك الأسقف بتاع كنيسة كانتربري، وكذلك المدير العام لكنيسة الاسكتلندية أثناء إقامتهم في البلاد. وهم كده مشوا بانطباع بتاع إنهم تم استقبالهم استقبال حسن، وده عكس الصفات الكريمة لشعب بتاعنا، صفات بتاع استقبال الضيوف والصفات بتاع تكريم الضيوف. احنا بنشكر كل النسوان اللي طلعوا وقدموا الزغاريد، بنشكر كل الفرق الكنسية التي رقصت، وبنشكر الفرقة بتاعت الأشولي اللي استقبلت البابا برقصات بتاعت الأشولي الجميلة على أنغام قرع الطبول وذبذبات بتاعت الموسيقى. وكذلك نشكر الصحافة كذلك، لأن الصحافة لعبت دور كبير في نقل الرسالة للمواطن أينما كان، يعني حتى نازل برا الدولة تابعوا فعاليات الزيارة من خلال الإعلام الحديث، من خلال البث الحي والمباشر على كثير من الصفحات في السوشيال ميديا. وكذلك الشكر بنوصله للتلفزيون، الإعلاميين في التلفزيون القومي، لأنهم برضو اشتغلوا شغل كويس وقدروا ينقلوا يعني الزيارة بتاعت بابا اللايف للمواطن حول العالم رغم التحديات اللي واجهتهم. والشكر موصول لجميع رجال الدين في الداخل، لأنهم جميعا وقفوا وقفة رجل واحد. وكذلك برضو بنشيد بالحكومة للترتيبات الأمنية اللي هم خطوه تنشور إنه ما يكون في تفلت أمني في البلد، رغم إنه نحن فقدنا فيهم الأمل. فرسالتنا للشعب إنه لنمسك أيدينا معا ونتوجه إلى الأمام معا لصناعة التغيير ولصناعة المستقبل الذي ننشده. إلى ها هنا أختم كلمتي، وشكرا لك الأخ جونكور، وشكرا أيضا لضيفك الكريم الأستاذ بيتر بيار على هذا الحوار الجميل.
أشكرك أستاذ دينجير أيوك لاستجابك للحوار، وكنت ضيف معنا في استوديو كونسيرن سيتيزن اوف ساوث السودان. في الختام أيضا أنا بشكر الأستاذ الدكتور بيتر بيراجاك حول هذا الموضوع. أنا أشكر thank you for the people of South Sudan for tuning in, the viewers of concerned citizens of South Sudan. As usual, it is so crucial that we start the new beginning. Pope is giving the people of South Sudan hope and momentum, and from here we need to talk about what can young people of South Sudan can offer the country. So thank you so much, and with that I want Ustaz Abdullah Garang, Ustaz Moses Adward to continue in the clubhouse. Meanwhile, I will go ahead and play the visit of the Pope as I am concluding here. Thank you so much, dear brothers and sisters.
Yourself, Jonko. Yeah, Ustaz Abdullah.